Mike, thanks for coming on, chatting today.
Yep.
Really excited to discuss some things related to international research with you today. You've traveled the globe doing myriad projects across industries and different types of clients and have a wealth of experience. You're Cicero's resident globetrotter and really excited to talk about that. But first, let's just introduce who you are and what you do here at the firm. Let's go there.
Okay. So Mike Jensen, partner here at Cicero. I've been here for about 9 years. I have spent, prior to Cicero, I spent a lot of time in sales operations, marketing operations, undergraduate degree from University of Utah in economics, and then graduate degree in predictive analytics from Northwestern University. And most of my time here at Cicero has been across each of our business units, where I do a fair amount of market research. You've mentioned that I do a lot of our international research. And where I've spent a lot of my time at Cicero is I oversee most of our hiring efforts, our recruiting and talent acquisition. And then also I've done a fair amount of our transformation, change management, implementation efforts here at the firm.
Right, and I mean everybody at Cicero knows Mike because very approachable, and also because he's interviewed everybody. And the strength of our firm really is a testament to Mike and what he does.
Thanks.
And so, Mike, when we're talking about international research, just help provide a little bit of perspective for me. Like, where has Cicero done work? Like, how many countries are we talking about here? Maybe how many have you been to? And then we'll go into a little bit more specifics, but just to give a little bit of context about, where we've actually done work and why that matters.
Yeah, so this is completely off the cuff, and I maybe should have been a little bit more prepared for this, but the last time we had looked, we've done research in over 70 countries. I think that the number's a little over 40 different languages, and some of that has been in online survey work, and a lot of it has been in on-the-ground research. A lot of our international work, and I know that this is research related, some of our international work actually extends into post-merger acquisition. We've been involved with the Australian construction company integration, and then also process improvement for some of our Bay Area tech companies. But I know that most of what we're talking about today is research related, and so it's around 70 countries or so, and about 40 plus languages. Each year we do maybe 3 or 4 international trips that usually cover 3 to 4 different countries in each of those trips.
Yeah.
And
it always seems like so much more.
Yes.
Mike, it seems like you're always traveling and going somewhere really interesting and doing work.
I'm probably downplaying it a little bit, but we've got actually a pretty wide breadth of international work that we do.
Right. I mean, that's a lot of languages, a lot of countries and cultures that vary immensely. And so I imagine that doing international research really can be challenging, even for probably what we consider a basic project. But what are some of the things that you've encountered being on the ground, actually going to these countries and doing this work on behalf of organizations and companies here in America? What are some of the challenges that you've really seen come across your way and you're like, wow, that was really interesting? And
yeah, well, I think regardless of whatever country we're doing research in, there are going to be its own cultural nuances, even taking into account the UK, fairly similar to the States, Australia, fairly similar to the States, and then you look at a different country like Zambia or Brazil or something else like that sounds a little bit more foreign, but regardless, each of them have their own unique nuances. Once you take into account language, then there's just another barrier that we've got to work through. And so there's a fair amount of translation. There's a fair amount of understanding. If they understand that the research is coming from an American or from the States, what's the relationship with that country with America, and does that resonate having an American researcher out there, or do we need to train local moderators if we're doing interviews or focus groups or anything like that? So those are some of the sensitivities that we just need to be aware of to make sure that we're objective and getting the right findings as far as what we're trying to go after.
Well, and so you talk about findings, and it leads me to my next question of what would you say some expertise is that you have that really you bring to the table when we're working with these international clients? What are some of the things that folks and these companies and organizations really try to understand about, um, I guess, any given issue, I guess, that they're engaging with us on? But what are you finding is common that companies engage with us on? And how do you approach getting to a good solution for those issues they're trying to figure out?
Yeah, so the issues vary per client, but some of it is just general perception, reputation of a particular organization. We do that a lot with some of our nonprofits. Some of it is product development. Do the product features resonate as well internationally as they do here in the States, or originating country? I think another one, Chase, also is market entry. The world is more connected now than it's ever been, and in another couple of years it'll probably be even more connected. And so we see a lot of companies that want to expand either their messaging, their presence, their products, whatever it is, into different markets. And so we do a lot of new market entry. What's the viability of their expansion into different areas throughout the globe?
Well, and it sounds pretty complex to me, because you not only maybe will have some level of experience and expertise with the company.
Yeah.
You got to go in, you're engaging with a new client, you got to learn everything about what they are looking to achieve, and then taking that and translating it directly to these countries that they probably don't have any presence in. They're trying to figure it out. So that seems like both sides of this. And what is an effective way that you've found to help these companies bridge that gap to ensure that they are achieving their goals?
So it's hard to get a pretty good grip on things sitting here from our Salt Lake office or our Dallas office or DC or wherever we may be. We've invested pretty heavily in getting some really solid international partners. And so that allows us to have a presence in each of these countries and be able to talk to local folks and get a pretty good understanding of what we might be up against as we're trying to do some research. We battle everything from not just cultural nuance that we've talked about before, but perception of Americans and the United States, the language barrier, but then also government regulations and country regulations. So as an example, I've mentioned some nonprofits, and so some nonprofits have some religious affiliation tied to them, and some countries don't allow you to do any type of research that's religiously oriented, and so, for example, Japan. So we can't really deal with that. And so having these good partners that help us to really get a pretty good grip going into a new country, that is to our benefit. So for example, as we're talking about needing to be aware of some of the current events, years ago we were planning to do some research in Eastern Europe, and the war with Ukraine and Russia had popped up, and we were planning on being on the ground in a neighboring country. And we had to take some real consideration. Did that make sense to even conduct that type of research, or would the impact and effect of that war, would it discredit what we were trying to accomplish? And so we've got really good partners, and ultimately decided to go through with that research, and it came up. It didn't come up to the degree that we were thinking that it might, but little things like that really impact the way in which we go about collecting data in each of these countries.
Right, and I think that ties in maybe more specifically to my thought on what are some of the methodologies that Cicero deploys, that we deploy, make us kind of unique in the marketplace, because I think that there are probably a lot of business consultants who would say, oh sure, yeah, we can go do international work, but really they haven't done anything. I think it's very different when you've got decades of experience across dozens and dozens of countries. And so that really does make it quite different in how we approach those projects. Can you talk a little bit about what makes us a little bit different in the methods we employ?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really sets us apart is honestly, it's our experience, and it's a little chicken egg thing, because you need to be able to get the experience to do effective work, but then do effective work to get the ongoing experience. And I don't know that it's really that much different than if we were doing research here in the States. And so we do a fair amount of primary research, and so that can be anything from quantitative survey to qualitative focus groups, interviews, anything of the such. I think secondary research, some of these countries, they will produce some reports. Again, we can have access to any country-specific data, census information. So I think one of the other things that sets us apart, and this might just be a Cicero thing, is we are really, really good with data. Everything that we do ties to data. Can we implement any data-driven strategies? And so as we take that into consideration to our international work, I think that gives us an edge up on some of the other researchers out there. And a lot of times it's not just left to our data scientists to crunch the numbers in the back. We this goes back to my hiring. We hire a unique person here at Cicero that can actually go out and conduct some of that research, but then they've also got the other side of the brain where they're able to do some of the data analysis as well. That allows us, as we track over time, to get some cross-cultural analysis and analytics, and then also longitudinal trends. So it's I don't know that it's too much different than what we do domestic, but I think our experience really lends itself to set us apart.
Well, I mean, and just even having the capability of talking over 40 different languages, I think is huge. 40 languages, that's a lot of languages that we speak currently at the firm. So I think that is a huge difference. And, I think as we start to wrap up our conversation a little bit, I'm just a little curious about what are some common pitfalls that you found that folks should be aware of when they're thinking about their international presence or expanding internationally or wanting to do anything internationally? What are some pitfalls that people will often encounter?
Although the world is getting really small and it will continue to get smaller, I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all to every location that you're going to. There are unique approaches if we're going to do research here just in the States. And that can vary per state, it can vary per project that you're doing. And I had talked a little bit about even going to the UK. That is very different from doing research in the States, even though it's fairly similar. And so I think a common pitfall is this is just the way that we've always done it, and we're gonna continue to go that way. So I think as you're writing a research plan, taking into account the way in which the country communicates. You can be a lot more direct in some of the other countries, the way in which you ask certain questions. There are regulatory, regulations that we've got to be aware of. I talked about the religious element, but there are other elements that you just can't ask. Again, I hate to keep going back to the cultural nuance, but that's really
everything.
It's everything.
I mean, it's everything. The cultural nuance is everything.
The way that you approach asking questions and who's going to ask those questions and how we go about digging for information in Kenya is very different than doing it in Australia or even Brazil, just because of how they respond, how sensitive they might view giving up information, and sometimes some topics are just totally off limits. And we just need to be aware of that. And so those are some of the biggest pitfalls. It's not just this is how we did it in the States and we're just going to go out and do it again. And then also I think the other thing too is not leveraging local resources, whether that's folks on the ground that are going to conduct the interviews or the focus groups. But I think those are probably some of the common pitfalls that we've seen. And then we've frankly had to learn the hard way on some of those, and that's what makes us a little bit better and more unique.
Mike, this is really interesting, and I think that the fact that we are able to have this international capability makes us, quite different. And your expertise is incredibly valuable and useful. And thanks for sitting down, chatting for a little bit.
Yeah.
And we'll have to bring you back and talk a little bit more specific on some of this stuff. But
perfect.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chase. Appreciate it.